Okay, so here I have a brand new Unity scene. I have the latest Unity SDK already pulled in, so I'm going to start by kind of walking you through all the steps and showing you how to get an override quilt displaying in your looking glass. So first, go in, drag in holoplate capture. Now in holoplate capture, you'll see down here, there's a holoplate camera. The first important thing is click on this background image and set the alpha to 0. This lets you see other things in the screen, like a user interface, as well as the override quilt. That's important. Then, if you look here and you open up the advanced section of the quilt script, there's this area here called override quilt. And I'm going to check render override behind, which lets me show some 3D stuff and also 2D stuff. And also like the regular quilt. And then let's pull in one of the quilts. So here's my quilt folder. Here. So here's a folder with a bunch of quilts. I'm just going to drag in one of these quilt images. And here I am in Unity. And I'm just going to pull this into override quilt. And get a better mouse. And then, just like that, oh, and then there's one last thing. So these are 4x8. This is kind of the standard tiling. It's important that you set that in tiling. As soon as I do that, I see a live view of that quilt within Unity. So of course you can set this. This is available in the script as an override quilt on the quilt object, and you can set that programmatically. But that's really straightforward to do. And the important thing is it's got to have tiling and it's got to have the override quilt. Last thing is just to show, so if I add, let's say, a sphere into the scene, it immediately is going to show up on top of the quilt, like in the looking glass. And you can move that around as long as you have the that setup that I showed where you have the camera set up with the background is with the alpha of 0, and then you can move this in and out of your scene kind of with impunity. The quilt, when you look at a quilt, by default its focal plane is set up at 0. So just like any of the other stuff. So when I am showing like this orchid image in my quilt, and I know you can't see this on the screencast, that's the focal plane of that quilt is set up at z equals 0, and same with this sphere. So I can move it around relative to the focal plane of that shot. So I can kind of make a mix of a user interface that appears like it's in front of the quilt and the rest of the quilt behind it. Very last thing just to show is this is a more elaborate scene, so with a fully fleshed out user interface. So here I used a leap motion. Let me go to the other side. I used a leap motion and I put in 3 video icons with the idea that, for example, like when I, let's say I want to, in software, select between different icons. So in this case, I'm playing quilt videos, but exactly the same idea as playing quilt photos. So when this eventually comes up, I put in a really simple user interface in this case of being able to put my hand up here and hover over one of these different images, and it has a script that just says, oh, okay, I selected this, now I'm going to show that quilt as my override quilt. So it's super straightforward, very much kind of in the same vein as showing video photos. I'm just here doing video. Cool? Cool.